Right, let's talk about America. It's impossible not to. America is like that one roommate you had in college who was bigger, richer, louder than everyone else in the house. They own the best TV, they control the thermostat, their music is always playing whether you like it or not. You can't ignore them. You might even secretly enjoy some of their movies. But good Lord, do they make it difficult to live in peace sometimes? America's influence is everywhere. It's in the movies you watch, the soda you drink, and, quite often, in the foreign policy decisions that dramatically reshape your entire region. This isn't an accident. It's the result of a century of economic expansion, military expansion, cultural expansion. That has made the United States the undisputed heavyweight champion of global presence. This immense power means that when America does something, the world feels it. It's like an elephant doing ballet in a canoe. Even with the best intentions, things are going to get tippy, and someone is probably going to get wet. The United States has positioned itself as a global leader, a beacon of freedom, and the world's policeman. But here's the thing about being the world's policeman. Nobody likes the police. To understand why some people view America with a healthy dose of suspicion, you need to crack open a history book, and not the glossy American version where every war ends with a ticker tape parade. I'm talking about the versions where American intervention left a slightly more complicated legacy. After World War II, America stepped onto the world stage with the Marshall Plan, a genuinely impressive effort to rebuild a shattered Europe. It was a moment of incredible generosity. But it also set a precedent. America as the world's benevolent and very powerful architect. Architects can get a little carried away with their grand designs. This impulse to help or fix other countries has often blurred the line between assistance and interference. Take Latin America, for example, America's backyard, and at times its laboratory for questionable foreign policy experiments. The Monroe Doctrine, originally to keep European powers out, slowly morphed into a justification for U.S. interventions. This produced a long, sordid history of propping up friendly dictators, funding coups against democratically elected leaders, and treating sovereign nations like toddlers, needing a firm hand. The CIA-backed coup in Guatemala in 1954 is a textbook case. The pattern is tragically familiar. A country elects a leader who might nationalize an industry or enact land reforms that could hurt the profits of a powerful American corporation. Suddenly, that leader is labeled a communist threat, and U.S. support quietly flows to military generals with cool sunglasses. The Cold War was essentially a 45-year global custody battle between two superpowers, with the rest of the world treated like the kids. America, the Soviet Union, drew a line in the sand and told every other nation, "You're either with us or against us." This wasn't a friendly game of capture the flag. It was a high-stakes chess match where the pawns were entire countries. America's strategy was containment, stopping the spread of communism at all costs. This noble-sounding goal was used to justify some incredibly ignoble actions, turning regional conflicts into proxy wars and propping up brutal regimes simply because they were anti-communist. Consider the Vietnam War. It began as a struggle for Vietnamese independence, but was tragically escalated by the US under the domino theory, the idea that if Vietnam fell to communism, all of Southeast Asia would follow. The result was a brutal, devastating war that killed millions of Vietnamese civilians and more than 58,000 American soldiers. To the rest of the world, particularly in developing nations, it looked like a massive, wealthy superpower brutally bombing a small, poor country into submission for ideological reasons. It cemented an image of America as an aggressive, imperialist power that valued geopolitical strategy over human lives. This wasn't an isolated incident. All right, let's talk about the Middle East, a region where American foreign policy seems to have been guided by a squirrel on a caffeine drip. For decades, U.S. involvement has been a chaotic mix of oil interests, unwavering support for Israel, and a series of military interventions that have often left things spectacularly worse than before. It all starts with a simple, inescapable fact: oil. The American economy's thirst for cheap oil has led to a series of very cozy relationships with autocratic, oil-rich monarchies, particularly Saudi Arabia. This has created a glaring hypocrisy that the rest of the world can see from space. America champions democracy and human rights, except when those principles get in the way of a steady supply of crude oil and lucrative arms deals. This double standard is not lost on the people living in the Middle East or on observers around the world. when the US criticizes Iran's human rights record, while simultaneously selling billions of dollars in weapons to Saudi Arabia, a country with its own, shall we say, problematic approach to dissent, it completely undermines its moral authority. It sends a clear message. American values are flexible, and they can be bought. This perception of hypocrisy is one of the biggest drivers of anti-American sentiment in the region and beyond. And then, of course, there's the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Sold to the world on the premise of non-existent weapons of mass destruction and a flimsy fabricated link to 9/11, the invasion was seen by many as an act of naked aggression. America's power isn't just about aircraft carriers and military bases. It's also about money. Specifically, the US dollar, the world's primary reserve currency. This gives the United States extraordinary economic leverage, a power it hasn't been shy about using. When the US Federal Reserve changes interest rates, it doesn't just affect homeowners in Ohio. It sends shockwaves through the economies of Brazil, Turkey, Indonesia. That influence often benefits the American economy first and feels deeply unfair to other nations forced to ride the roller coaster. America's role in institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank is a major source of criticism. These organizations, heavily influenced by the US, often attach strict, painful loan conditions. They demand that developing countries cut public spending, privatize state-owned industries, open their markets to foreign competition. These policies are often called the Washington Consensus. Supporters call it fiscal responsibility. Critics call it economic colonialism. They argue it benefits multinational corporations at the expense of poor and working-class citizens. During the 1990s Asian financial crisis, countries like Thailand, South Korea were forced to accept IMF bailouts with harsh terms, causing mass unemployment and social unrest. American culture is one of its most successful and most controversial exports. Hollywood movies, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Nike sneakers, iPhones. This cultural ubiquity is a testament to America's soft power, the ability to influence others through attraction rather than coercion. For many, American culture represents modernity, freedom, and opportunity. A pair of Levi's jeans behind the Iron Curtain was a potent symbol of a different, more desirable world. But this cultural dominance is not universally celebrated for many. It feels less like a friendly exchange and more like a hostile takeover. This phenomenon is often called cultural imperialism. The fear is that the relentless flood of American media and products will erode local traditions, languages, values. French filmmakers worry that Hollywood blockbusters are squeezing their national cinema out of theaters. Governments in the Middle East worry that American television shows promoting liberal social values will undermine their conservative societies. It's a fear the world is becoming homogenized, a global strip mall where every town has the same fast food chains and everyone is watching the same superhero movie. This can lead to a powerful backlash. Perceptions of America are not monolithic. They vary dramatically from one region to another. Let's start with Europe, America's old, slightly cynical cousin. After World War II, many Western Europeans saw the US as a liberator. They also saw it as a protector, a necessary shield against the Soviet threat. Over the decades, that gratitude has mixed with growing irritation. Europeans often view America as powerful and well-intentioned, but many see it as loud, arrogant, lacking in sophistication. They roll their eyes at American evangelicalism. They're horrified by its gun culture. They are deeply skeptical of its cowboy diplomacy. This criticism comes from shared values but divergent priorities. European nations have embraced social welfare systems, multilateralism, international law. They point to America's rejection of the Kyoto Protocol, its withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal, and its general skepticism of international institutions. Many see these as selfish unilateralism. Now pivot to Asia, a much more complex relationship. In Japan, America is seen as a crucial security guarantor. In South Korea, the US is a counterbalance to China. In Taiwan, America is also viewed as a security guarantor. For these countries, the US military presence is a welcome source of stability. Yet, there is friction. At the heart of much of the world's criticism of America lies a fundamental paradox: the gap between its ideals and its actions. The United States was founded on the extraordinary principle of liberty, democracy, human rights. It holds these values up as a beacon for the world to follow. And yet, its history and its present are filled with instances where it has failed to live up to those very ideals, both at home and abroad. This perceived hypocrisy is perhaps the single most potent fuel for anti-American sentiment. It's not that people hate freedom, it's that they hate being lectured about freedom by a country that doesn't always practice what it preaches. Think about it from an outsider's perspective. America presents itself as the land of the free, yet it has the highest incarceration rate in the world. It champions free speech, then prosecutes whistleblowers like Edward Snowden, who expose government secrets. It advocates for global democracy, yet has a long and sordid history of overthrowing democratically elected governments. Understanding these criticisms isn't about wallowing in guilt or engaging in some kind of anti-American blame game. It's about something much more practical and important: effective foreign policy and national self-awareness. In an interconnected world, you need allies. You need cooperation on everything from climate change to counterterrorism to global health. And in the 21st century, a clear-eyed, realistic understanding of America's place in the world is not just helpful. It is absolutely essential for navigating the challenges that lie ahead for everyone.